Greetings, Guzzlers. We're going to bake some bread. I haven't made bread for quite a while. I keep trying to get geared up to make a sourdough, but because they take at least 2 days, it's just getting the right slot. And I've got a right slot, and I'm going to make a sourdough one. Now, I previously made a fruit and I think it was a fruit and nut sourdough from Gail's Artisan Bakery book or cookbook, and this is another one from hers. This is her onion seed sourdough. So I've got a pretty active, my starter's pretty active. I fed it last night and it's still bubbling away there, and I've got 150 grams of that. Now, although that's made with rye flour and primarily this is plain white flour, that's going to be all right because we are adding some wholemeal flour, and in fact I'm going to add some rye wholemeal. You're going to want some fresh yeast or instant yeast ready to go, and some ice cold water, and then you're going to need your flavourings, which is some sesame seeds, salt and Nigella seeds. Now here I think she's made a little bit of an error in her book, because she says you want 3 teaspoons of Nigella seeds, fair enough, and then you want 30 grams of black onion seeds. Well, that's Nigella seeds, and I've hunted high and low to make sure that I've not got that wrong. Black onion seeds are Nigella seeds, and given that these are what she calls flavourings, and she just says chuck your flavourings in, I can't quite see what she's getting at. Certainly 3 teaspoons doesn't weigh 30 grams, so I'm not quite sure whether that's a typo and it should be some other type of seed or not, who knows. But it's definitely primarily an onion seed sourdough, so it's the Nigella seeds, the black onion seeds, and that's what we're making. So into my mixer I've got 500 grams of strong plain white flour, and then, like I said, I'm using some rye wholemeal. She just said use wholemeal, but I had some open rye there, plus, like I said, my starters, that, and so it's not an awful lot there. 25 grams of strong wholemeal flour. Then here we go. I've got my 150 grams of my sourdough starter. In that goes. When it wants to go in. And then I've also got, now she says use 2 grams of fresh yeast, so I've made up the equivalent using instant yeast. Now this is going to prove, well, initially it's going to prove for about an hour, but this is the main proving is going to be overnight. So we put that on low, and we now just knead this for 4 minutes. I should of course say, don't forget to put the ice cold water in. I've got 350 ml of ice cold water. Now we knead it for 4 minutes on low. Okay, so that's just over 4 minutes. I had to stop it and give it a scrape down. It wasn't quite picking the flour up from the sides. So now, 3 teaspoons of sesame seeds, 30 grams of the Nigella seeds, the black onion seeds, and then here, sea salt, fine sea salt, pink Himalayan as it happens, and we're going to put 3 teaspoons of that into it, and then that's going to go on to medium speed, and we're going to knead that for 10 minutes now. Right, that's 10 minutes. So that's our stand mixer finished with, but rather than get another bowl all dirty, what we're going to do is we're going to remove the bowl from the stand mixer, and we're just going to let that sit in there, covered over with a cloth, damp sort of tea towel, and let that prove for an hour. And then we'll be coming up and shaping it. Now, she says this will make 2 small or 500 grams loaves or bloomers. She shapes them. I was going to put them in a banneton. Not sure whether I'm going to get 2, but we'll see. So, prove it for an hour. So that's had an hour. I can't say it's particularly doubled in size or anything like that, but it looks like it has swollen up a little bit. Now I'm just flouring back in my hand. Actually, it hasn't really gained much. I was just going to knock the air out, but there isn't really that much in there, to be honest. So what we're going to do is, and then I'm just going to turn this out onto a floured surface, and then this is where, depending on the size of the loaves you want to make, like I said, Gail's book, she talks about making 2 sort of 500 gram loaves. To be honest, I don't know, perhaps, yeah, let's see how we go. I might now just split this into 2, and then, now in her case, she doesn't put them in bannetons. She uses a baking sheet, and she just forms them into a bloomer. I'll just have to have a little bit more flour there. She just forms it into like a bloomer shape, or 2 of them, puts them on a baking sheet, puts that in a big plastic bag with a bit of air around it, and that goes in the fridge. We're going to do it in bannetons. So I'm just going to cut that roughly into half. And just roughly shape it to fit my banneton. I have given it a little bit of a dusting of some semolina flour to try and stop it sticking. That's going to go in there. I'm then going to cover that, and I'm experimenting actually with some shower caps. And like I say, that's going in the fridge overnight. Now you could, if you don't want to do the fridge stage, you could just leave it somewhere not too warm. I think that banneton might be a bit big actually for that I've got left here. But you could just leave it somewhere warm-ish for about 8 hours. We're going to put it into the fridge, and I'll see you tomorrow morning. We are next morning. I've got one of the loaves out of the fridge, and it has significantly risen in that time. And actually, I took this out about an hour ago because we need to let it get up to temperature. Now, this should spring back when you press it, but it is quite puffy and soft. And I've done this before when I've done where they say prove it overnight in the fridge. It always, I think, over-proves it. But anyway, our oven is on and up to temperature. It'll be interesting because I've mentioned previously I'm waiting to get a new oven, and I'm having to sort of compromise how I heat my oven, and it's not getting as hot as it would do normally. I've got a baking stone in there. It's been brought up to temperature, so this has been on about an hour. And I've got a tray in there, and I've got some ice cubes which we'll be chucking in there. I've got a water spray, or you could use a brush with some water. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to flour the base of our dough, and then we're going to flip it out onto there, working quite quickly. Just going to wet it all over, and then generously sprinkle it with flour. And finally, what we're going to do with this one is give it a good, and just see what I mean about how soft this dough is. I think this is vastly overapproved. I'm getting a very raggedy cut. It should be a nice clean one, but regardless of that, next thing we're going to do is this. I need a glove on for this one because I need to pull out sliding that onto my baking stone, pull out this tray, chuck in the ice cubes, quick spray around in the oven, and we're going to shut that, and then we're going to let that cook for about 10 minutes. Now, when I chuck my ice cubes in, normally they instantly start to turn into steam. They didn't do that. I've got a feeling my temperature is not going to be hot enough. Okay, but what you would normally do, you've got it on maximum, you cook it for 10 minutes and then cut the temperature down to about 200 and give it, and let it carry on cooking for another 30 minutes. So I've obviously got my other loaf to cook, that's still in the fridge, and we'll be doing that once we bring this one out and the temperature's gone back up in the oven. So for now, just a matter of waiting. I've just removed the second loaf, and as I said, the oven wasn't up to temperature. For the second loaf, I didn't even bother turning the temperature down because it was at about the temperature, about 200 or so, that you'd want it anyway. This is a little thing. I bought some these Challenger oven gloves. I hadn't got any real decent oven gloves for handling that really hot baking stone. I didn't want to risk it with my NASA glove, so I think that will burn it. These things have got Teflon or whatever, got a nice inner coat. Did notice when I was holding onto the baking stone, as expected, they were starting to get warm while I was sort of messing around holding it, but it does warn you that obviously it only protects you for a limited amount of time. But so far these have been really good. A bit expensive, but really good. So anyway, the loaves are both out. They didn't rise. I don't know if she's trying to talk to me again. They didn't rise. They're a bit flat. We might, that one's a bit obviously cooler. We might try them, well, we will be trying them in a bit, but we need to let them cool for about an hour. So give that one a little longer and then we'll have a little taste session. Still a little bit warm. That was the first one out, the one that was flatter. So, like I say, a little bit disappointing. I don't know whether it was overproving the oven temperature or a combination of the both. But it's certainly got a nice crust on it. And actually, it has got a nice open crumb to it. Let's have a look. As you can see there, and you can see the black onion seeds and Nigella seeds in it. While I'm cutting it the wrong way round, it's only sitting there. Watch. I'm going to cut my fingers out. So, there we go. Let's try it first off, just plain. Quite a heavy crust, as you can see in here. It does have that sort of noise, you know, the crunch, if you like. I think that top bit was a little bit too overdone. You're getting that flavour of the Nigella seeds. Now, it's not onion. It doesn't come from the onion plant. I think the closest flavour would be like celery seeds. Let's try it with a little bit of butter. with that. Either way, bread tastes really nice, full of flavour, got the right amount of salt in it. Just a pity it wasn't a bit bigger or taller. But there you go, courtesy of Gail's Artisan Bakery Cookbook, onion seed